Om Shochidamram, Homer Nachala. So, question was asked, how does desire relate to abundance? Is desire just a contract we make with ourselves to be unhappy until we get what we want? Is it an indulgence to stay miserable and wallow? So, desire is of two types. It is of the reasonable type and it is of the unreasonable type. The unreasonable type leads to what would almost be insanity or junoon, or what is the point of manifesting and desiring if you don't have athletic ability and you want to run 100 meters in less than 9 seconds? Only exceptional genius level of athleticism can do that. I think it has happened just once, and that was dope. There was an event in the 60s when drug testing was not so great, and in a 4 by 100 meters the last leg was run in 7.86 seconds, purely on dope. There was no other way that it could have been done through natural. But what is the point of desire? See, let us be very clear that desire is what fuels life. If you do not have desire, your life is more or less over. So to look at, there is a lot of fake spirituality, fire spirituality, which looks at desire as a terribly bad thing, and one is above all those things, as if one is Shiva sitting in the Himalayas. That is not true. Desire is what motivates almost all actions, even in spirituality, which is probably the very difficult thing for people to understand. So I do not think that a desire in itself is a bad thing. Why should a desire in itself be a bad thing? There is reasonable desire and then there is unreasonable desire. So there are things which are, with a certain level of psychological and spiritual maturity, you realize that there are things which are not appropriate and there are things which are appropriate. So if you insist on inappropriate things manifesting, then of course your desire is gone out of control. What is wrong with a reasonable desire being fulfilled? You see, the problem is that in the Purusharthas we had 4. Artha, Kama were equally valid Purusharthas as Dharma, Moksha. The downgrading of Artha, Kama and just privileging Dharma, Moksha is what has been the problem. So desires are Artha, Kama. And in our culture, in the Vedic culture, it is clearly understood that Artha, Kama can be fulfilled. They should be gratified. For an integral life, for an integral or a Purna Yoga, all of them should be gratified. Of course, in a dharmic manner, but in per se, a desire is not wrong. This is the imposition of sannyasa values onto the larger society, which has been a disaster for the country. Within a reasonable limit, or within even a slightly unreasonable limit, why not? Because it is only the unreasonable people who bring about change in the world. Shaw very famously said, the reasonable man adapts himself to the world, the unreasonable man insists on the world adapting themselves to him, therefore all change depends on the unreasonable man. So again, the question is, what do you mean? If you are in a loop where you have a desire, it is fulfilled, and then a new desire takes its place, so you are in a perpetual state of unfulfilled desire, then for a brief while you have attained the success or you have attained what you want, and then again you are in a loop of unfulfilled desire, then you have a problem. Because now you are basically using the fulfillment of your desire as sedation. there is some lack within you, or there is some gap or void within you which you are seeking to fill by the fulfillment of desire. Whereas the fulfillment of desire should lead to a sense of contentment. If it is not leading to a sense of contentment and it is just breeding more desires, then those were not very good desires perhaps to begin with. Most people would argue that the more you give in to desire, the more it inflames. I don't think that is true, because the more you have unfulfilled desires, the more frustrated you become and the more bitter you become. You become very angry against the world, against universe, against God, against society, that those legitimate things that I was, in the Jewish mysticism there is this brilliant concept. They say that on the day of judgment, when God calls you to account for all your actions in life, He will also call you to account for every legitimate desire that you had that you did not fulfill. Why did you not do that? I gave you these opportunities to be happy and you did not take them. I have not seen any other culture which says that God will hold you responsible for not taking the opportunities given to you. You could have had this pleasure, why did you not take that pleasure? You could have had this happiness, why did you not? But the question is not that. The question is deeper, is that because again there is a cultural assumption here that desire must be eliminated. Only Mahasiddhas are desireless. The average human being is very much in a state of desire, and there is nothing wrong with that. That is why the Purusharthas have Artha and Kama. We are trying to live by just denying the existence of the three lower chakras. We are only higher chakra people. That doesn't work. The three lower chakras are the foundational chakras, and they need their fulfillment just as much as the higher chakras. In fact, I would go so far as to say that by denying the lower chakra desires, by denying Artha Kama, you can also progress very rapidly. But almost always when I see somebody get derailed on the spiritual path, it is because of Artha Kama reasons. Because they refuse to honor or they refuse to acknowledge those sides of themselves, and then one day that unfulfilled the desire came and stood in front of them and demanded its price, and you fall into temptation. You become a more powerful person, your personality transforms, you suddenly become attractive in certain ways, and things happen that you would not otherwise have expected to happen, and suddenly it is seen that you are behaving in ways which are perhaps unethical or some such thing, or non-spiritual. So the very notion that one must be desireless is a dangerous notion. And I believe that by insistently striving towards it, that is for only exceptional people, and it is only for those on the sannyasa path. But the sannyasa path is not the only path of spirituality. That again is one of the great misconceptions. There are other methodologies also. It is not just the path of renunciation, and even over there, how many messes happen on the sannyasa path too? It's not like messes don't happen, it's not like scandals don't happen, but at least they are trying. Is desire just a contract we make with ourselves to be unhappy until we get what we want? The problem is, even when you get what you want, you're not happy. Because then you want something else. And very often people think like, I settle for too little. Yeah. There is a dream job that they want, they get that job, and then they realize, if I was good enough for this job, maybe I was better for something even better than that. yeah, or they take a shot at somebody out of their league romantically, that works, and they immediately think, maybe I could have done better than this. Yeah, which is far more common than you would believe, by the way, trust me. Like, as a guru, I began to realize people come to me and they have problems in their sadhana, and the problems all go back to Arthakama, which essentially are unfulfilled desires. So I am not a see, there is a difference between fulfilled desires and debauchery and indulgence, overindulgence. Like just becoming addicted to pleasure, that is not fulfillment of desire. That is, but why should a desire to have a better job, better car, better standard of living, what is wrong with those desires? Those are good desires. Those are aspirational desires. Those are socially valuable desires. You want a better life for your children, that's a desire too. You want your children to do better than you want them to do financially better than you, live in a high quality of life, that is a good desire. So, one should not be down on oneself for desiring. It is when one is an endless loop of desiring that you realize, I have a problem. Nothing is satisfying me. And that is usually because you are seeking substitutes for God. What you need is the divine. And because you don't have the divine, you're seeking substitutes for the divine. You're seeking to fill up the empty space in your life. And only the divine can satisfy you at that time. Only the divine can fulfill you at that time. And you're seeking to numb yourself with substance abuse and gadgets and things and pleasure seeking and European holidays and those kind of things. So that also I have seen. I have seen people who have everything and are completely unhappy, and I'm like, nothing now can make you happy except the presence of the divine. But that is the one thing they won't do. Arya, I am still young, I want to enjoy life. I'm like, what makes you think because you're a spiritual person you cannot enjoy life? Where did this mindset come into people? Our greatest period of spirituality was also our greatest period of abundance as a country. We were so abundantly creative in our spiritual realm, and we were also making magnificent temples. And if you read the classical Sanskrit literature, the kind of standard of living that people had, the kind of riches that people had. So there is a innate lack of God, which makes a person like a vampire, never full. Always they want more, they want to feed more. No matter how much they have, they feel empty within. Then you are in trouble, and that trouble can only be fixed. There is only one, insofar as I have seen in my life experience, only the divine can fill that void. When you, no matter how many of your desires are satisfied, if you are not satisfied, if you don't feel comfortable because your desires are satisfied, then you are seeking God. Because God is infinite, and there is no end to what the divine can give you. So that part is very clear. Like once you are touched by the divine, then you begin to realize, okay, so all those other things which I was chasing, because I thought they would give me fulfillment, they would give me happiness, they give me a imitation of the real thing. The real thing is much greater, which doesn't mean that you stop eating or that you stop all the other things that you do in life, because those are all necessary. You see, the day you become completely desireless, you are either a Mahasiddha or you're dead. Desire is the fuel of life. Desire is what keeps you going. The need to do more, attain more. So is it an indulgence to stay miserable and wallow? Desire is an indulgence to stay miserable and wallow. Yes, if it becomes a chronic case of dissatisfaction, then yes. Some people are addicted to unhappiness. They will never be happy. They just look for excuses to be unhappy because they get their happiness in complaining and saying that my family maltreats me and nobody appreciates me, and and then in college you all had that bore person. You saw them coming and you would slip away in the corridor. You become like that. When after college you think that's over, then you have work colleagues like that. Yeah? Most of them are called HR. Yeah? All the mentally ill people go into HR. I don't know why it is so. All the people who are just unhappy, bitter, spiteful, yeah, they end up in HR. So when that happens, you can see that there are some psychological problems, but the healthy gratification of desires is actually one of the vital steps to doing well in yoga. Not by shutting off everything. No, I shall not look at that. Yeah? How does that end? Menka wala scene. That's how it ends. What is the psychology behind that one trope of the meditating rishi being sidetracked by the apsara? That is that you are pretending something that is not true. So yes, it can become an indulgence, it can become a state of mind where you are only happy when you are shallow and wallowing and indulging your misery and pulling everybody else into that same misery with. So when you're talking about manifesting abundant, a person being in the minute you get downers, people who are depressive, wet blankets as they are called, the minute your job is to throw out all the wet blankets from your life. Unfortunately, many of them happen to be family and friends, so there's a little problem there. But don't allow downer people. So does desire, drive, motivate, even enable us towards abundance? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It is a drive, it is a motivation. Kosha Purva Sarvarambham. After the accumulation, Kosha, capital, accumulation, Purva, after, Sarva Arambham, everything begins. First line of the Arthashastra. This was written 2200 years back. At that time they had a more sensible approach to life. So now we have this whole false gyan of tyaga and renunciation, and they are all very good principles in moderation. They cannot be a blanket prescription for everybody, because like I said, I have seen people, they come to me, they are learning sadhana, they are having difficulty in sadhana. It all comes back to these two things. Artha Kama. Blockages in Artha Kama. And then I have to sit and fix that. And I have to spend time talking about these. Every guru complains, even Osho used to complain, I want to talk about enlightenment and all they want to talk about is their boyfriend. Because they are not able to progress because of that romantic desire being frustrated. In India, more than the romantic desire being frustrated, it is the financial desire being frustrated. So half the time I have to spend in advising people how to fix their financial life. Then only they do well in yoga. Because that constant gnawing at the back of the head. But just because you have desires, that does not make you a bad person. This is one of the worst cultural tropes that has been pushed into the mind of people. That to have desires makes you a bad person, or it makes you an inferior person, which is even worse, Because Ravana was a bad person, but at least he didn't have unfulfilled desires. So this is not so complex as it appears. It is complex because we have created a false morality around the negation of two vital purusharthas which should never have been negated to begin with. Artha and Kama, that is what Sri Aurobindo called the great wrong turn of Indian culture, where we prioritize the renunciative mind above everything else. Now, some people, some personalities, that is absolutely the right way to go. I am the last person to say that the renunciation path is wrong. It is absolutely correct, but it is not for all. We cannot have a social value system built on renunciation. The social value system needs Artha and Kama, and the fulfillment of Artha and Kama. Yeah, that's clear. Sarvam.